Okay, so today, and if you're in 7th or 8th grade, we will be working on some graphic editing. Normally, I would use GIMP, which I use at home, but it doesn't run on our computers. So we're going to be using something called Pixlr today. Uh, and we have some small objectives for today, which are the layer, history, tools, and desaturation. So you'll learn what layers are, how to use the history tool, how to use the different tools, and of course how to desaturate a photo. And by the end of the class, you should have been able to, or at least be able to go home and make 3 selectively colored slides, and hopefully you'll have some time to play with some other features. So let's get started by going to Pixlr and picking out a editor. So when we go to the editor, it will load up such as this. And one of the things it will ask you is to create a new image, open from computer, or open image from URL. So at first I'm just going to show you by creating a new image, just so we can get an understanding of how everything looks. So that's fine, but one thing I am going to do is do a transparency. I don't know why, just when you work on advanced projects, you want some transparency so that you can see through things. So here we go. We have our general picture. This is the area. You can tell it's transparent because of the white and gray checkers. On the top, of course, we have our menu bar. We have our toolbar over here, which has things like the selection tools, some paint brushes, eraser, paint bar, so on and so forth. We'll go through some of these later, and of course our color. We have a navigator. This is really useful for when you're zoomed in on a picture. You can see the whole picture here, even though it'd be zoomed in over here. And one of the most important is the layers box. Actually, this is probably the most important area in any photo editing program you could think of. So this is going to be our first goal today. And you have a couple different buttons here. But the one we're concerned about is this one, which is the new layer to start with. So as you can see, we have 2 different layers, and I want to kind of give you an idea of how layering works. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the layer that I want to work on. So I want to work on layer 0. I'll click on my paintbrush, and you'll see up at the top there are some different tool options. There's opacity, hard tip, scatter, diffuse, all sorts of things. And there's also a size editor. When I paint, depending on what I'm doing, I typically like to use the hard brush, none of the blur on the edges, none of the anti-aliasing. So, and what I can do is I can just kind of draw, and you'll see that I just made a simple, ugly painting. And now I'm going to do something similar on the next layer, except I'm going to choose a different color. I'm a big fan of pink, so we'll go with pink. And you'll notice it draws kind of right over it. So one of the cool things about layers is you can only edit in the layer that you're on. You'll notice if you look in this little box, it just shows the pink and this little black. The cool thing about that is now if I take the eraser, it only erases the stuff in the pink layer because that's the layer that I'm working on. So that's very cool. In letting us edit. So we can edit on things, try things out, and if we don't like them, we can undo them. Of course, if we didn't like that, we can also go to our history box and undo the eraser tool by just clicking behind it. So now we're back where we started. Another cool feature of layering is the ability to stack them. So it makes sense that the top layer is what's showing. So if you had 2 pieces of paper, you could only see the top, cut out the things that weren't there. So one of the things we can do is reorganize these layers by making it go like that. And now you'll notice that the black layer is on top and the pink layer is on bottom. Now if I use my eraser tool, you'll notice it doesn't delete the black, but it deletes the pink. Why is that? Well, we still have the layer pink selected over here. So that's why it's editing there. Okay, so that's the basics of layers. The top one is the one showing, and you can make the bottom one show by erasing some of the top one, like so. And of course the bottom layer shows up now. And of course it only works on the layer you want, so whatever layer you're selected on. Okay. So now we're going to move into actually um, dealing with actual images. So I'm going to close this one out. I don't want to save it. I don't need anything for it. But now I'm going to pick one from a URL. Now URL is a web address. So I'm going to do selective coloring. So one of the things that is always selected for coloring is roses. And that's because roses typically provide a very good color over a backdrop. So I'm going to look for one that I like here that is usually often a very good contrast. Now when we pick some, we want to pick some that have really, really vibrant contrast. So this I think is a neat colored one, but I don't know. But this is definitely a good colored one. So you get some ideas, but we will take one. Here's an example of selective coloring right here. So you can see that it's black and white and the rest is colored. So let's pick one out. I think this is a neat one. So let's take this image and we'll selectively color it. So you notice to go back to that, I went to view image. It gives me just the image. I copy my image URL and I open it here. And I just select this and hit paste, Apple V or Control V, or double click, right click, paste. Okay, and now I have the image. It has opened it. Now you'll notice something a little bit different here, which is my background layer has a lock on it. That is not the best thing in the world because I can't edit it really. I can paint on it, but I can't do much with it. So typically when you have a background layer, what you do is you duplicate it a couple of times so that we have a couple to work with. So now I have my layers, and of course we can go to, depending on which one I'm working on, I can of course paint on it. And of course you won't see this paint because it's on the second layer, not the top layer, but I can always cut out the top layer with my eraser tool here. Oops, sorry, I was on the wrong layer. Notice it didn't show anything. If I click on the top layer, and now you'll see that the pink shows up, but we don't want that either. So let's just go back to our duplicate layer in our history. So one of the things we can do to do selective imaging is to remove the color, and the way you do that is under adjustment. And color comes in form of brightness or saturation, which means how much color is available. So we can either remove the saturation manually and make it a black and white color, as you can see. Also, you could go the other way if you really wanted to, but we could move it that way, or we can just use the desaturate command under adjustment, and it'll take away the color for us. So now we have a color copy and a black and white copy. And if we use the eraser on the top copy, it'll be like cutting that out so you can see underneath, and you can see that certainly we do have a nice picture of a rose here that will come in. It will be red and so on. Now you notice I just made a mistake. I could of course undo that, but I'm not too picky with mine because I'm just showing you an example. Now with yours, I expect you to be a little bit more specific. And one of the ways you can do that is that you can zoom in. So you can either use the zoom slider, your mouse scroll bar will also zoom in, or you can use the little slider here, and that will zoom in for you. Again, with the eraser, we can also increase our brush size if we felt like, and we can do some broader strokes. But like I said, when you get down to it, you're going to want to be very detailed to make it look as nice as possible. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. And so you can see we get this nicely colored rose, and it really, really stands out from its background this way. And if we wanted to, we could go do the stem to make it really stand out. So let's try and do that. Let's try and get this stem in here. So we get this nice, beautiful green stem. And let's do the leaf. So in the midst of all of the rest of this, we have just a beautiful rose kind of standing out on its own, which I think is a very nice photo in the end. So this is how we do selective coloring. You should be able to get 3 of these done by the end of class. You can choose images from the web. A helpful hint, make sure the colors stand out. Make sure they're bright colors, your reds, your oranges, your bright blues, your bright greens, uh, against a good background. Don't take anything that looks too flat or dull, or at least increase the saturation so that the colors stand out a little bit more. So have a good time, enjoy, and I can't wait to get back and see you guys again.